In the year 1876, Frank Brown had a vision. In the words of his daughter Edith McGinnis, the Lord met him on holy ground and showed him the plan for his life. Like Abraham of old, he was to be called out to a land which he did not know, to build a name for God, and that's just what he did. Throughout his various travels, he came upon a piece of land in Clear Creek. In 1895, Friensdwood was founded.
And I remember that when he started Friensdwood, he bought the land from a man in Galveston, and got this tract of land known as the Friendswood subdivision, and he sold it out to settlers that wanted to come this direction. And he advertised in the American Friend that they're starting a Friends community here in Friendswood, and land available for people who's interested in coming. And through that is the way the community really got started. And that's the reason he called it Friendswood, was because we were friends. That's the name of the denomination, and it's surrounded by woods. So he picked the name out as Friendswood. He thought that was a very appropriate name for the city. And he sold it out in tracts from 10 acres to 50 acres or 40 acres to people who wanted to come and settle here. And the Harveys was one family that came, and the Stouts and the Knights, and several families come. And that's when we started the church, when the community really got started.
First view of Friendswood was pine trees on the ground and cattle. We came through about 8 pastures that had longhorn cattle, and there were 8 gates to open. I remember that.
I think the things that I remember best being, at the very youngest age was I remember going down to Grandpa Brown's place on 4th of July. They usually, the first one I think was, that I remember, was where the Baptist Church has their, community hall or family center. And I can remember there being there and being very, very young. And they did the potato sack races and things like that.
528 was not in existence. It stopped before you got to Clear Creek. So a few years later, we did get the bridge through, and we just really thought we had a super way to zip to Houston without having to go through League City or Pearland.
And so I can remember of being at Grandma's house, like on Thanksgiving or Christmas, he was pretty well confined, at least to a couch where he would lay and rest. And I can remember of him particularly in this one instant. He had a back scratcher that was made out of a knot on a limb on a tree, which he had with him, and we would play with that as small kids.
And back here, I was in the 6th, going into the 7th grade, and then finished high school here in Friendswood. My first 2 years of high school were in the Academy building. This was the Friends Church, the big 2-story building, and the upstairs part was the Academy. And I went there my freshman and sophomore years, and then in 1939 they opened the new high school, and I was a junior, and I graduated then in the 2nd graduating class at the public school.
Is it your auditorium? Yes. That was our gym, and I remember playing volleyball in that gym where your auditorium is now, and we weren't allowed to wear shorts. We had to play volleyball in slacks.
Well, we just had a little wooden, white school up on the corner where the Friends Church parsonage is. Had all 7 or 8 grades, I forget which we had then, in that one little building.
Did you graduate from school?
No. Well, I graduated from the grade school, but and then I went to the Friends Academy 3 years, and then they had to close it down because of lack of money and all that. And so then everybody went to Webster High School. So my senior year was spent in Webster High School.
All I can remember was going to school in a terrible building. It was an old house. And the teacher lived in one part of the house. And the house was so rough and sort of broken up, I suppose, from the storm. And but I started to school when I was 7. That's the time that we went to school first in Texas. And that's where I first saw Cecil. We were in the first grade. I can remember walking back from school to the house we occupied and walking through the mud and slush. And Mom would have to change my clothes time I got home because I was all muddy and so forth. But I can't remember that I minded it very much. It was kind of fun. But then we went on to school together clear till we got into college. We went 2 years in college together, but we went to Kansas for that.
When I met Lynn, I was working in the fig plant. And he came by the plant one day, and Mr. Brown said, "Lynn, would you work for me today? We're really busy. We have lots of figs today." And he saw me back in the back catching bottles from the bottle capping machine. And he said, "I will if you'll give me that girl bottle catcher."
When I moved to Friensdwood, then I met my husband. We went to work in the fig plant. That was the thing that all of us looked forward to doing at that time because times were just not all that good. So we looked forward to moving to Friensdwood and being able to work in the fig plant. And when I was there, I met my husband. Well, when I was 16, I met him. But then when we moved to Friensdwood, and I was 18 and working in the plant, and I met him there and got married 2 weeks after I finished high school.
The Brown family also started the Friends Church, which is still here today. The first service held in the new community was at the Browns' house. In Edith McGinnis's book, The Promised Land, she recalled her mother Mary Jane stating, "I guess we'd ought to meet tomorrow and thank God publicly for the way He has led us and helped us in so many ways." The church remains as a symbol of the dedication and love the Browns felt towards the Lord and is a symbol of the earliest days of Friendswood.
The church services, Friends Church was started the first Sunday that we was here in Friendswood. We had a meeting in our own home. Papa had read the Bible and they had scripture, and there's 1 or 2 other families that lived in this vicinity that came, and that's when we had the first church service here in Friendswood.
When they were probably 10, 11, and 12, somewhere thereabout, we joined the Quaker Church, and it's been our church ever since.
The Friends Church was, of course, it is a Quaker denomination, and but it served the community, and most all denominations worshipped with the Friends in the Friends Church for many years. My people were all Methodists, but I grew up here in the Friends Church, and we went to the Friends Church because there was no Methodist church, and of course I joined and belonged to the Quaker Church. This is a lifelong Quaker. Even though she wasn't raised here in Friendswood, she was of a Quaker family from Kansas.
Friendswood was quite different then. It's a much smaller community, of course, and it was kind of interesting that you had to go through either League City or Pearland if you wanted to go to Houston without getting on a gravel road. 2351 turned at Beamer, and that was the Exxon field there with a fence going across the road, and you went on then on a gravel road on Beamer to the Ellington Field cutoff. 528 was not in existence. It stopped before you got to Clear Creek. So a few years later, we did get the bridge through, and we just really thought we had a super way to zip to Houston without having to go through League City or Pearland.
During this 1986 Sesquicentennial year, many celebrations have been held throughout Texas. but the spirit felt in Friendswood was incomparable to anything throughout the state. A sense of pride is developed. Very few people have had families here since the beginning, or have even lived here all their lives. But they have developed a strong love and pride of our town. Its small town atmosphere, good schools, safe neighborhoods, and friendly people have drawn people by the thousands to this piece of land on Clear Creek that Frank Brown affectionately called the Promised Land.
No place but Texas.